Good evening, and welcome to the Putnam Valley Board of Education Business/Work Session Meeting of February 7th, 2019. Please stand and join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since our last meeting, we've had temperatures that were 1 degree. We've had temperatures that were 61 degrees. So that's the flexibility here in Putnam Valley. I'd like to start with a resolution to approve, I should say, the minutes of the January 24th, 2019 work session/business meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd also like to announce that the Treasurer's Report for December 2018 is available in the business office. We are now going to move into our school presentations about the budget, but first, due to our involvement of our students and the fact that there's rehearsals going on downstairs, we would like to hear from our student board member representative first.
Hello, thank you. So starting with course selections, last week the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders were called into the PAC to learn about their class options from teacher representatives of each department. There's a variety of different courses which the students may take in order to find out what they truly are interested in. There are also IB programs which are being included in the curriculum. These challenging programs take 2 years to complete. There's also the one-act play. The one-act play winners, who were Jacqueline Pedotti in first place, Bianca Garcia in second place, Caitlin Carroll and Brian Carroll, both in third place, because it was a tie, will put on their play in the library on February 14th, starting at 5 p.m. They truly worked hard to bring their stories alive and direct their vision. The National Honor Society Blood Drive. The National Honor Society is hosting a blood drive on February 14th from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. It will be held in the Putnam Valley High School PAC. Please donate. I can't urge you enough to donate. You will make a great impact on people's lives. Give a gift straight from the heart this Valentine's Day. The Great Works Concert. There will be a Leonard Bernstein concert in honor of his 100th birthday celebration. He was an American composer, conductor, pianist, and educator. It will have selected musical works performed by the Putnam Valley High School Wind Ensemble and choruses. The concert will be conducted by Ryan Odell and Gerard Macera on Wednesday, February 13th at 7 p.m. in the PAC. The snow date will be February 14th. The basketball game. So tonight there was a varsity basketball game which started at 6:15 p.m. in honor of Elias Knapp, who unfortunately recently passed away this week. The community came together to create t-shirts which are being sold for $10 in honor of Elias during the game. All of the proceeds will go towards the Knapp family. Our winter teams are participating in postseason competitions. Please mark your calendars and support our student athletes when and where you can. Indoor track and field sectionals. This was February 6th at the Armory, which started at 5 p.m. There was also the boys swimming sectionals, which was today at Claxton Felix Fiesta Middle School, which started at 5 p.m. The gymnastics sectionals was also today, February 7th at Carmel High School, which started at 3:30 p.m. The wrestling sectionals will be held February 8th at Edgemont High School at 4:30 p.m. and February 9th at Edgemont High School at 9:45 p.m. The finals are at 3 p.m. Ice hockey sectionals are February 15th and will be determined. And the cheerleading sectionals are February 16th at Arlington High School, which will start at 9:40 a.m. in the Putnam Valley, scheduled for 10:50 a.m. The girls' basketball sectionals and the boys' basketball sectionals will both be determined. These venues will charge at the door. Typical sectional prices are $8 for adults and $5 for children under 12. The seniors above 62 and the veterans. Thank you. I apologize, but I have to go to my play rehearsal. Thank you.
Go sing, dance.
Honestly.
Good luck, and we look forward to the play.
Thanks.
Okay. so-
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So we are going to move right into our budget presentations, and we are going to begin with athletics. And while you're walking up there, did I note from the student representative, every one of our winter teams are in fact participating in sectionals?
Some of them are still being determined. But
Okay.
yes, it does
But most of
look
them-
like that.
Okay,
Yes.
that's great.
The one that I think is very close is ice hockey. We're still seeing if that's going to make it yet.
Okay, great, very exciting. Okay,
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for rearranging a little bit. We have a game going on downstairs. So here's our budget presentation for the 2019 and 2020 school year. The athletic department objectives: to provide our students building good character, responsibility, self-discipline, work ethic, and respect for themselves and others. And this is of particular importance to myself. I think sometimes this is the thing that can get lost a little bit. So I applaud the district and the department for putting this first and foremost to try to keep and instill some of these qualities in our student athletes. Of course, we try to supply the best possible equipment and facilities that we can that are safe for our students, and to be fiscally responsible, and to provide a positive community-centered experience through partnerships with various organizations in the community and collaboration, Parks and Rec, and things of that nature, Putnam Valley Little League. So some of the things that we worked on over the course of this year: we brought the athletic trainer, is now on contract with the district. If you've been to an athletic event, I'm sure you've seen Megan. She is loved. She goes above and beyond and really keeps the students in the best possible shape ahead of contests. She takes a lot of time and works with them to make sure that they're prepped and ready, and they're learning what they need to do to take care of themselves. It's really a huge win for the district to be able to retain her. The company that was employing her was moving her away from the district. We have a new high school nurse, Tara O'Connell-Purr. Likewise, I think she is very well received by the high school. The students seem to be appreciative of her and the consistency, bouncing off of last year where we had many, many subs. It's nice to have a consistent face in that office. We had a successful bond vote. We had to navigate some high-profile tryouts. We had teams that had significant upperclassmen, and how we went about working through that with the coaches and the student athletes, and making sure that we made appropriate decisions and did that as fair and as just as we possibly could. Adjusting to the department without Tom Hirsch. I thought about taking that out, but it is a thing. We had to adjust how we run our facilities, essentially. He would go out, and whether I was here or not, I knew everything was unlocked and open and fully functional, and that had to be redeveloped. So that's, it continues to be a work in progress. How we go about opening and closing facilities if I cannot be at every event, but it is something that we are working on. Different savings achieved through how we run the cage and how we pass equipment out, collect it, so on and so forth. I think I've said the socks. You'd be shocked how much a $5 to $7 pair of socks will add up. And when you're really making sure that you're only purchasing and passing out exactly the number we need, and so on and so forth, all of a sudden you're talking about a significant amount of money that will allow us to buy other things that we need. We had to, and some of those things, we've been able to replace the banners. They're on their way. They're being just final approval, so the gymnasium, different signage around the campus. We have a new sign in the gymnasium that's actually UV coated that will eventually go outside above the two trailers that were moved by the ramp and the stairs. So there's some things that we're able to do now because we're trying to save costs by being more responsible with the equipment. that we're not just housing all this random stuff over the years. Managing the elementary school field and the geothermal project there, we had one less field, and bees, lots of bees. It was unbelievable. I don't know if it was a product of the wet weather or what it was, but all of a sudden they came out from everywhere. And managing where we had students and where they were practicing, and so that they weren't just focused on the bees are all over the place. We had to move them around quite a bit, and thank you to Parks and Rec. They were accommodating every step of the way when they needed to be. We moved to a later start, so the coaches and the busing and so on and so forth had to adjust to starting practices later, potentially departing later when possible. And so far, it's been okay. There's been some transportation holdups, but as far as actually when we practice and maneuvering teams around in that aspect, it's been all right. Our coaches understand the bind that we're in, having the one main gymnasium, and they're accommodating and have been working with us, which is nice. And as of, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, the new athletic website, it's not finalized, but it is up. You can view it just by clicking on the athletics link there. You'll see kind of the direction that we're going. There's some different links on there so that it makes it a little bit more user-friendly. It puts information that most likely people are going there for out in the forefront rather than a letter, that once you read it, it doesn't need to take up the whole page, things like that. So we urge you to check that out. We are always open to suggestions on how to make it better. We are working on the health and wellness site. We're just trying to populate the links into the site before we actually roll it out. I think the development of how it looks is done, but we need to make sure that the links are all in there. Okay, so the numbers for Family ID, slight increases and decreases throughout. The numbers didn't come out on here. I do have them. We can say for spring varsity and JV, there was a slight decline of 13. The fall varsity and JV was a slight decline of 15, and an increase in the winter from 156 to 173. Modified about the same. Spring went down 11. Fall mod went down 21, and then winter actually went up to 105. Usually the winter is the most steady because of the nature of we only have fewer number of teams, but then how many you actually carry on those teams, unlike, let's say, soccer or something like that, where you can just carry more kids. So that's why those are typically a little more stagnant. And yeah, so we're right in the middle of about where we've been numbers-wise. And something that I've been talking to administration and other people around the building is that we want to make sure that when we look at these numbers, we take it in context. Are they going to music? That's all right. If the numbers are going down here, but they're finding something else that they're passionate, fine, no problem. It's not like we're just seeing sharp decreases for any particular reason, like something is wrong. So it's right about where it's been. This is what the budget includes. So we have transportation, contest fees, practices, of course, the coaches' salaries with an outline of how many we have. Volunteers, of course, are not actually in the budget, but it's just what we're managing. The support staff, which would be chaperones, the trainer, EMTs, which we have not had to have any EMTs now that we have the trainer in-house, clock operators, security, and game officials. The director position, as well as the clerical staff salaries, BOCES dues, which do typically go up each year. I'll talk about that in a later slide. New York State Public High School Athletic Association dues, just to be able to participate in all these contests and sectionals, and to be recognized as a bona fide school in the section. All of the equipment that we talked about, uniforms, reconditioning, repair, upkeep, all the safety things we do around the campus like that. And the contractual salaries for coaches, which are calculated and given to Jill, of course, each year. So the only slight adjustments that we, to mention, are indoor track and then anticipated increases for BOCES, which would be dues and things like that, officials' fees. We don't really control that. We always anticipate they do slightly go up. But the options for indoor track, what has happened, we have a merger now with Haldane, and they slightly changed a few years ago how the mergers would calculate as far as the beds numbers and where you're going to compete. So essentially, people are catching up to, oh, well, Putnam Valley is adding to Haldane's bed numbers, technically, so they should be competing in Class B rather than C. Well, Haldane and their coaches have determined that that's not something that they really want to do. And reasoning behind that would be, if you have a few athletes, and let's say we're sending 15 to 20, that could put you into a class of a larger school, and it may be taking away opportunities for their students. So, you know, you have to accept that that is a legitimate thing that they can decide. So what does that do? Well, we need to decide what we're going to do to support this particular program. We have not had coaches in place there. We've had a volunteer. So to date, we haven't had any cost involved. So we have a few options. We can attempt to find another merger. If that happens, typically we will still incur a coaching cost. All right, it's rare that they just say, "Yeah, come on board," you know, for nothing. And then there will be transportation involved in that. Depending on what that looks like, we may decide that it would be beneficial to run it ourselves, and in which case we would have control over the coach and we would run the sport here. We already have the track. When you calculate what the cost would be, it is less than adding most sports because we already have the uniforms. We already have all the equipment. So although it isn't a wash, it will cost somewhere. It is less than it would be to add almost anything else. We are looking to see how we can make that less impactful with the budget that we already have, of course. But again, it is something that we all need to consider which direction that we want to go with it. Okay?
I have a question about that.
Yes,
We don't have an indoor track.
correct. Haldane doesn't have track at all.
Oh.
So years ago, they used to come over and every other Friday or so, they would try to come over here and practice here.
So I was just thinking along the lines of hosting, and we would never host. We'd
Oh,
go
no,
there.
no, no.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
correct.
Got
We
it.
would just have practices all in-house with a coach in-house, and then we would typically go to the Armory as one of the primary spots, and then there's a few others, invitationals, which is where a lot of the cost is. You're talking about a bus down to the Armory for 8 hours. That's significant. So that's really where the bulk of it comes in, is in that.
How long have we had indoor winter track? Is this fairly new?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's been in place at least 4 or 5 years. It was in place before I
Okay,
came
was
into
in
the position, yeah.
And what are our numbers of students?
Last year we had 23. This year we had 18. And I looked back, 3 years ago we had over 30, which, you know, typically in the spring we're talking about between 70 and 80 student athletes on track. It is one of the sports that, as long as you're, you know, behaving and doing what you're supposed to, we will invite you out to be on the team.
Mhm.
So I would anticipate that if we did bring it to our district as a sport that we offer, it would probably be quite big, especially considering that we have so few winter sports. Those kids may look to do something in that time.
I think we really do have to look at the budgetary components. I
Yes.
go back to the, I believe, ice hockey. The transportation burden, for lack of a
Mhm.
better word, is on the parents because it is a merger and it's a smaller number. When competition cheerleading, was at one time, that was also something that parents did the transportation. This does increase our costs, so we'd have to, I was surprised that it was this many students. It certainly,
Right, so
me think about
that
it.
is a big consideration. Usually when you're talking about a merger, you're talking about a few students. And we're trying to make that connection with another school to offer the kids that opportunity. The trade-off is we need parent support, and that's where that transportation comes in. We couldn't just continually add sports like this because the transportation costs alone would be detrimental.
How does swimming function right now? Is that also a merger?
It is. So we have two different mergers with swimming. We have girls swimming with a merger with Mayapack. They come to our practice space, and they pay for the assistant coach. That was the agreement there. And likewise, we go to Lakeland Copper Beach for boys swimming, and we pay for one of their coaches. And we do have a shuttle bus, a van, rather, that does go over to and from Copper Beach.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Does anybody else?
Can I ask, have you had a greater turnover of coaches, less turnover, about the same as you've had in past years? You've been here several years now. What do you find this year?
I feel, for the most part, we're quite stable, especially in some of the higher profile and varsity level positions, which I think is contributing to doing well. I think we also, over my time here, I've discovered that the modified position is more critical than initially anticipated. When I came in, I think I viewed it as, okay, let's get varsity and JV, and then as long as somebody's not going to lose a kid, we can have them out on modified. Well, I've learned through the last few years that that position really builds that program. The better coach you can get there, which is tricky at times, because the good coaches typically want to move up, but the better coaches you can get there and stay there, the better the program's going to be. And so that's something that we've been focusing more on, is getting those stable modified coaches. That's typically where the turnover does lie, though, is in those lower age groups.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Good.
Would you like to talk about the?
Yes, I did have another question. Thank you for
Sure.
prompting me. I know that on our agenda today is a resolution and information about basketball in the county center. So
Correct.
can you sort of give an overview for the public of what the confusion is? We've always played at the county center, then we weren't going to.
Okay, so last year, the section decided that we would establish the finals for basketball, but not the semifinals, as they weren't doing that for many of the other sports. It would fall on the host school, which is the higher seed, to provide a location or host the semifinal game. So essentially this year, the higher seeds, or who will probably be the higher seeds, they got together and thought about what are the pluses, minuses of hosting and this and that. We did an exhausting investigation into what would be the best for our students here, because it is very case-by-case basis. You know, maybe our gym could host, maybe another school doesn't think they even want to touch it because they can't give that many tickets or whatever it happens to be. So at the end of the day, many of the schools went and they put a relationship together with the county center on particular dates that were going to be the sectional semifinals for basketball, and it is available. And the county center offered to, at the cost of $4,250, they would waive that in this way. Up to that number of ticket sales, they would, if they did not meet that number of ticket sales, they would eat the rest of the cost. They would take it on. If we exceed in our game that we host, if we are, they would give us back the over and above the $4,250. There will be two different costs for individuals, a $50 fee for a DJ and a $50 fee for an announcer. And my understanding at this point is that all of the conferences will be putting it on for a vote to provide that from each of the conferences, so to clean it up, to make sure it's not Putnam Valley paying $50 to this person and this person. It just takes a lot of the paperwork and aggravation, and again, like I said, cleans up that piece. One of the more difficult things to swallow is that if we do incur a snow day in there, we will move to the 28th. There is no shifting the bracket back. It will just be a leapfrog from whenever we're snowed out to the 28th. And what that does is it puts teams potentially playing back-to-back. That is a negative, but it has been done before. During a meeting on Wednesday at about 10 o'clock at Briarcliff, we had a drawing of when and where those games may play out. So the girls' B is going to be on the 25th. That cannot change. The boys' B is going to be on the 26th. Those were already established if we were to host or wherever we play. The drawing was to keep the B classes of each gender together. Okay, so B girls would be back to back and so on and so forth. So that was the first thing to be determined. So both the Class B boys and girls were going to be in the 2 evening slots, okay? So the games are typically 3, 4:45, 6:30, and 8:15. So we would be, if we make it, 6:30 or 8:15. And the higher seeded game would be in the later slot. It is to be noted that 8:15 means probably 8:30, 8:40, okay? But I witnessed the random draws, and we saw it all. And all the ADs that were there thought that making it as streamlined and as random and as transparent as possible, that was the big feel last year, that there was these decisions being made behind the scene that people either didn't understand or didn't agree with. So that's about where we are. At this point, after talking with Dr. Luft and Dr. Wills, the three of us met yesterday, actually Wednesday afternoon, sorry. We thought it was in the best interest of Putnam Valley to enter into an agreement with the county center to go for the semifinal games if we're lucky enough to make it to them. So that's where we are. And you will vote tonight on that agreement.
And the student report added cost, they would be the same that as they were last year? I forgot
Yes,
they were
yes, that would be
85
the
or-
gate.
Okay,
I
that's the
actually, my understanding is that it would be $5. Typically in sectionals, it can be between 5 and 8. I think it's going to be 5. And then, of course, parking would be on whoever goes to
Right.
park. That, the county center would take that.
Mhm.
And then we would provide chaperones and, of course, the bus for the athletes.
Yeah,
So,
great.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? This sounded like it was quite a logistic challenge.
You have to consider a lot of things. You want to make sure that you're doing right by the student athletes, and making sure that the moves are well thought out. You don't want to
Ensure
just let.
safety and consistency. and all
exactly.
that.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
you very much.
Go Tigers downstairs. Okay, waiting patiently is the high school administrative team to present the high school budget.
Good evening, everyone. What I've done is I have combined the social emotional presentation, the IB presentation, and the budget into one briefer one, just to give you an overview. So first, to look at our enrollment at the high school, 15-16 was my first year there. We had about 604 students, and we've been a little up and down, but in the same general neighborhood between 575 and 600 for the past 4 years. This year, we have a large incoming 9th grade at 155, and the rest of the grades are pretty steady between 140 and 150. Next year is the first year we see a smaller class coming in at 135. So we anticipate being a little bit lower, but we have been getting a lot of students moving in at the beginning of the year, sometimes upwards of 15 to 20 students. So that 575 may still go up as well, keeping us still pretty steady between the 575 and 600 range. This was a slide that I made for the high school faculty to kind of help them understand all of the initiatives we've been taking part in and how does it all fit together. And if we look at the foundation of the house, what provides the foundation for our school, it's the social emotional learning piece, where we're working on Yale Ruler. We had Say Hello Week last year. We have our PBIS Aspire and Sources of Strength, which Mr. O'Connor is going to talk about a little bit more later. We have all our different subject areas and our different programs, teacher pedagogy on the side, building us upwards, everything supporting the International Baccalaureate program, which is a very rigorous 2-year program that all of the work we're doing helps to support. And then I put solar panels up there for our sustainability and how it connects. So it all does fit together what we're working on. And actually, I should go back. We had our IB authorization visit this week on Monday and Tuesday, and I want to thank Mrs. Parmalee for coming and joining the governing body and speaking to. We had 2 women, one come from Minneapolis and one from Minnesota. They met with every teacher who wrote IB curriculum. They took a tour of the building. They checked out our chemical storage. They checked out our safe. They just did a thorough analysis of our school. They talked to students. They talked to parents. And they really got a good feeling for where we are with our authorization process. Mr. Mello and I got feedback at the end of the visit, and I'm happy to report they had no negative feedback to give us. They had no really suggestions to give us. What they did comment on, they were very pleased that all the different faculty groups came with their outlines prepared, ready to show what they know. Everyone had a very good understanding of theory of knowledge, international mindedness, and how it relates to their curriculum. They saw a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, and there was just a very positive feeling amongst the visiting team and the high school teachers. And as we all know, it's been a difficult week, and it was an extra challenge to have the visitors here, but everybody really gave their all to make a very positive and experience for both groups. So we anticipate that their report will be done by the end of the week. They hand that into the IB authorizing team, and then we hope to hear within a month or give or take 4 to 6 weeks, we hope. So we think it's going to be positive, and we're looking forward to that. And I do want to thank the board for their support of that program. I think it's really revitalized the high school faculty. Again, they've shown a large commitment to it, spent a lot of time rewriting curriculum, and really embracing the tenets of the program.
Dr. Yanchuri, I make a suggestion on this slide.
Sure.
Find a student in art and design to make this look like a real building.
Okay.
I just think and then it has kind of a staying power that can be used in many places instead of, obviously it's a text boxes on a screen.
Yes.
I think if you get somebody to design that, it could have kind of a life.
I like that. Thank you. I'm going to do that.
You know they can do it.
Yeah, it's something I didn't think about. It's true. It's something we can continue to use.
But it is a nice organization, it really is, it's great.
Because sometimes for faculty, we do a lot of different things, and people sometimes have difficulty understanding how does it all fit together. Then, as we know, we've spent a lot of time the past few years with a lot of large initiatives, whether it's been the later start, the varied block schedule, community lunch, achievement center, academic eligibility, our new attendance addendum, PBIS. So how are these programs working? I think it's important to take time, reflect, talk with the faculty, talk with students, do some surveys, take a moment and just see how are all these things working, what differences is it making, where do we still need to improve, So that's going to be a really larger focus coming up in the spring and in the fall of next year. So as far as the social emotional learning piece, the community lunch this year has been, over the past few years with PBIS, we've done a lot with social emotional learning. We've added the Spotlight program where we try to recognize students who are showing character in a number of different positive ways, and that's made a huge difference, I think, to a lot of students. We've also done a lot of work with restorative justice when we're doing the discipline. We've had the peer mediation program added. We've started the Yale Ruler. And the community lunch is another way to reinforce and help students with social emotional learning. So I made a short, it's less than 3-minute video, just to show how the community lunch has added to our environment. And as many of you know, the first days of the community lunch were quite challenging, and it is amazing when Mr. O'Connor and I walk around the building now because we go, where are the kids? It's hard to imagine that they're all free at the same time because it's not so apparent or obvious. And after this, and I'm going to have Mr. O'Connor come up and talk a little bit because we've had a few schools already come and visit us, and that's been very rewarding, and I want him to give that reflection. And in the library, they've had the open mic, which has been a wonderful experience, giving kids the time to learn to speak in front of others. Everybody has a friend. They're not isolated. They can meet with their teachers, their guidance counselors. There is a club schedule that we have posted so students can, on different days, participate in many of the different clubs that we have available. The weight room is open. And one of the things it's going to show is the gymnasium during lunchtime, which if you ever get a chance to come visit, I encourage you to do that because it is amazing to see the kids just getting tons of physical activity during this time. In fact, Coach El Sasser and Coach Billy organized a volleyball tournament during lunches this week, and there must be 200 kids down there either watching, playing, just having a very positive experience.
Andre, how long a period is lunch?
It's a little over 60 minutes.
Okay.
But the first 20 minutes for 9th and 10th grader, they're in the academic study where they can get support from teachers in math, science, English, etc. So it's mostly really the upperclassmen that are free that time. Mr. O'Connor, do you want to come up and give your reflections?
Good evening. Yeah, Dr. and Cherry mentioned a lot of the things, the benefits of it. I will say that as word has spread maybe throughout the Westchester Putnam area that we've instituted this community lunch, other schools have expressed interest in coming to visit, to take a look at it. That, I would say a combination of that and our block schedule, but in particular the community lunch. So just in the last couple months, we had a group from Somers High School, students and a couple faculty members came to do a visit during our lunch. We also had representatives from Carmel, administrators from Carmel High School came to also take a look. And at another workshop I was at recently, Peekskill reached out to us to see if we could send them some information about how this is all going. So I will say just the experience of giving them a tour throughout the building kind of filled me with a lot of pride, because as we were giving them the tour, they were just amazed at how well it was functioning, you know, and they were, you know, they'd say, is there really 600 kids floating around the building right now? And we'd say, yeah, because you don't really feel it. They've all kind of found their spots. You know, it's great to see the kids kind of being able to, you know, move around during lunch, get some exercise. It's something that, you know, we sometimes think that recess is something for younger kids, and we've now realized that high school kids, you know, like to move around and get that energy out too. So that's been another factor. When we bring our visitors up to the library, many of them said that it almost had like a college kind of campus-like feel. So I think, again, these are all really positive things that have, you know, had a really kind of strong impact on the students. And it also, by having that time in the middle of the day for lunch, I think all the students know that, you know, they're going to get that opportunity every day to be with their friends. Whereas if there were multiple lunch periods, that wouldn't be guaranteed. And so they know that, you know, if you come to our building in the first half of the day during our academic time, the building is kind of very quiet and orderly. And then we have this kind of community gathering during lunch every day. And then when the bell rings, it's amazing at how we transition right back into the academic time again. Our visitors were also very impressed by how clean the facilities were. You know, we roll out garbage cans. The students are great at kind of taking care of their stuff, throwing things away, and then we take them away. And within minutes after the lunch ending, you wouldn't know that we just had 600 plus students all over the building. So that's just some of the reflections that I've had on the community lunch.
Are there any no food eating areas, like the library?
The gym. So we make sure that we don't want food and drink going into the gym. So the students know they have to eat. If they want to go to the gym, they just have to eat first, then they can go down there.
In fact, today, that was one of the issues we ran into, because the volleyball tournament is so popular that students ran down there to watch the volleyball tournament and then didn't have time for lunch. So
Okay.
it's learning that
that
balance
out,
and,
right,
and that
right.
shift.
Because looking around this room, you would never know that any adolescents ate here, anywhere. So,
And if you ever come up to the library, it's a wonderful thing, because Mrs. Demain teaches the upperclassmen where the vacuum cleaner is, where all the cleaning things are. They take control of it, and then they teach the ninth graders, you need to vacuum this area. Or it's very self-directed. It's wonderful to see. And I really can't compliment her enough for how she runs the library, the programs she has, the activities, whether it's puzzles out, other different type of maker activities. It's very impressive. Other people, when they come from other schools, are very impressed. I'm having difficulty getting past this page. There we go. So coming up for the future for next year, where do we go from here? How do we strengthen the connectedness that we already feel? And one of the ways is through sources of strength. And this was a grant written by Dr. Wills right about the time that I arrived at PVHS. They have come for an initial training, but they're very popular and very in demand and difficult to get scheduled. So we're working on that, but Mr. O'Connor has been the point person, so I wanted to, again, turn it over to him to let him talk a little bit about it.
So, yeah, back in the late fall, we had so two representatives from the University of Rochester came down as representatives from Sources of Strength to introduce it to our faculty. And Sources of Strength, I was reading up that it started back in 1998, so it's been around for a while. It's kind of a research-based program. On the surface, you know, they're kind of billed as a suicide prevention program for the most part, but it's much more than that. And that's what we gathered from hearing from the representatives. It's more of a, similar to maybe a kind of like a PBIS model. It's a culture that they try to help bring to your building, and they do it mainly through the students with some faculty advisors. So they have offered, and we're going to work on scheduling to get them back for a training. It's usually, they need about 4 to 6 hours with the faculty, and then they'll need another 4 to 6 hours with the students to get them trained in this program. But one of the kind of visuals they used that I thought was powerful and kind of explains their approach is they call it an upstream approach. They kind of had a visual of like a waterfall, and they said that a lot of times students that are in crisis, by the time it gets to the attention maybe of adults in a school setting, they're kind of near the edge of the waterfall, and then you're trying to kind of scramble around to catch them, whereas their whole idea is moving further up the stream. So if you can build a culture where it's led by the students, you can kind of maybe catch them further up the stream before they get to that crisis point down the line. So when I will say that the faculty members that saw this presentation were very enthusiastic about it and are eager about getting the training when they come back.
And then also, of course, we are here to help students meet their highest potential. So we've talked about social emotional learning to give them the foundation. And then instructionally, what are we going to be focusing on? I would like to add Math Twilight to our already afternoon program to give students who are having difficulty getting through the algebra regents another opportunity to get support. Sometimes if you walk around and see the math classrooms during the community lunch, the math classrooms are full. 20, 25 students or more in each math classroom, where the math teachers are giving extra help throughout that entire period. But if you're a student who needs even greater support than that, Math Twilight is a much smaller setting, and they can get more focused help. Teachers will be continuing to work on their new IB curriculum, and they're going to be looking at IB resources, new texts, looking at how to register the students. It will be a whole encompassing process. Mr. Mello and I continue to educate parents and students on the IB program. It, as we know, is very complex, can be very difficult at times to understand different points of it, and that will take increased communication. Also, one of the areas that IB really focuses on is academic honesty, and I think that's something we could do a better job of at PVHS, and talking to students about what does it mean to be academically honest, and what are different forms of academic dishonesty. We're also going to be looking more at international mindedness, which is not necessarily flags and festivals and food, but looking at how do different cultures approach problems? How do different cultures why do they have different perspectives? What are their different perspectives on issues? And how do we learn to understand them and look at it with tolerance? And then also continued backward mapping with the middle school. We have done some of that, but we need to do a lot more to ensure that students are prepared for the IB program, but that we have a cohesive program 6 through 12. And the new course catalog, I'm not going to click on it, but you'll see our Aspire poster. Caitlin Cohen will be on the cover of it, and it also has our new IB pathways and IB courses. And then next year, now that our major initiatives are out of the way, I do want to take a more strategic look at how do we implement civics education in our high school, how do we look at equity and justice issues, and put something in place that is more consistent and not just a random assembly once a year, but something where we really delve into these issues, whether it's through student forums, whether it's through guest speakers, on a more consistent and regular basis. And just a minor update on clubs. One of the goals that we had set for the debate club was this year that we debate with schools outside, or begin that process of debating with schools outside of PVHS. And the Yorktown Debate Club, this was the first time that Yorktown had ever sent their students anywhere. So this is they're starting together in this process of learning to debate, and with students there they don't know very well. So this was a huge success, a very nice collaboration between the two schools, and something we are looking to continue. And as it was already mentioned, Leonard Bernstein, we have our concert, our Great Works concert next week if it doesn't snow, and we're very much looking forward to this. And would conclude, and I am going to conclude by saying at the high school, we have spent a considerable amount of time really working to make a cohesive team. And this week, as we know, has been very sad for the entire high school with the loss of Elias Knapp. But it was very touching downstairs at the basketball game, because if you look at the student shirts, on the back of it, it says family in huge letters. And to me, that was very symbolic and touching for, I think, how the students feel about their school and the community they live in. The teachers really went out of their way, the counselors this week, to be supportive to the students, visit students in the lounge, make time to care for them, make time to talk to them, and many parents reached out to us to thank us for the comforting environment we provided. Any questions?
I just have one minor question, just really curiosity about math and the math twilight. Do we only offer algebra as a one-year curriculum? I know that sometime with our special ed students, we would offer it over the course of 2 years.
So
Gives
we
them
do, we
extra
have
time?
both. We have the
Okay.
1 year, and then we do have the pre-algebra where it takes them the stretch, I call it like a stretch, a
Right.
2-year stretch to get through it. Sometimes, though, we do have students who have even been in the stretch or the 1 year who have just difficulty getting through that final exam.
Okay, I'm just curious. Great.
My question is really related to budget. I know that it says no additional staff. We have, are there any retirements in the high school for next year? I'm just thinking, are we replacing people, or are we repurposing people? Are we seeing no change at all? It says no additional, doesn't mean it's not a cut.
Right, so basically what's gonna happen at the high school, as you know, most of the faculty is about the same age range. And I would say a majority are about 35 to age 45. So we don't really have any retirements coming up this year. But what I've explained, and I started talking to staff about, is the fact that the high school eventually will, because of the population dropping in the elementary and the middle school, once the population starts dropping in the high school, many departments will be shifting to part-time at the middle school. That they'll be taking some sections down there, as well as having some sections in the high school.
There will be restructuring of positions. We've started that discussion, and that's part of our budget process. Yes, it's not something right now that we are, ready to talk about at this point, but it is in our, we've had conversations that will lead to exactly what you're describing.
So it's a balance. We have just started the scheduling where counselors are meeting with individual students to identify their course selection. Then after that, we will get to the schedule. So it's a balance looking at what's our population, what can we share with the middle school, and working with the principal McCarty on that.
And I would imagine the first couple of years of IB are gonna be quite a challenge in striking a balance, because it's gonna be a long time coming to get those numbers up in those IB classes. But that then kind of turns into a struggle on the non-IB classes to get large, and then maybe not having too many in those classes, have to split them up, or not, now closing down sections. So I mean, that's something that's gonna be a
It will be a
problem.
challenge. The challenge will be, so if you know, IB has 2 levels, the standard level and the higher level. The standard level will populate quickly. For example, everybody in 11th grade will take English 11 SL. So those IB numbers will be very high. The challenge might be if we have students who choose a music pathway to get their diploma, because then they have to have music theory early on in 9th and 10th grade, but they also have to continue with it in 11th grade. So right now I'm looking at maybe a mixed music theory 1 and 2, a model with Mr. Odell and Dr. Macera on how we might do that, so that we don't have a music theory 2 with only 5 kids in it. So it'll be those higher level individual pathways that will be difficult at first to populate. But the counselors have been great. We sat together, we went through. For the diploma program right now, we are only offering 1 math, and that is Math SL, because the IB math will be changing soon. That means that the people who have the opportunity for the diploma will be those top 20 math students. So we went through each individual student and looked at right now, their passions and their interests to figure out what pathway they would likely go, whether it would be music, art, film, or an additional science, and tried to gauge the numbers by looking at that.
So in terms of, we've always said, well, not always, but pretty much since I've been on the board, do we have I'm trying to think of what the word, not ceilings, but limits at which we would not run a program, whether it be AP or just even an elective?
So we actually have, and I've actually at points been very strict. I try not to run a class if it's below 15. Sometimes in those computer programming courses, in the engineering course, in the arts classes, that can be difficult to do because you might have 9, 10, 11 students. Also, sometimes what we run into a problem with is balance. So let's say 70 kids take an English class, an AP English class, and we have 3 sections, so that can be nice balanced numbers. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. And then the other 2 sections might be, who knows, higher numbers, and then you might end up, bless you, with a class of 10. So we can't really cut that section because we can't add them and make the other classes over 30. So it's a kind of a tightrope walking and balancing. One thing I would like to consider for next year, and I've started talking a little bit about, right now it's 22 credits to graduate. Maybe we need to increase the amount of credits that students need to take before they leave. Students still end up with a lot of freeze. If it's in the morning, they tend to drop classes if it's a first period class. Like creative writing might have 18 or 22 when the class starts off. And then 5 weeks later, it's down to 10 because students would rather have a free in the morning and not come to school. So by increasing the number of credits might be one way to help those classes maintain their size and make things more rigorous for students.
And is that a individual district choice, or is that New York State, or all regions is the 22? How would that work?
That would be an individual district. So I still would need to survey the surrounding districts and what they have, but right now, our seniors have to take a minimum of 5.5 credits senior year, but I would like to look at it to at least for the 9th, 10th, 11th graders, especially the 11th graders, to look at what we could do to help prevent them from dropping so frequently.
Okay.
And you mentioned engineering and technology. Is the STEM program still alive and well and functioning?
That's a good question. So this year, we actually switched the STEM room from 114 to 112. It's a much larger room. They got new tables. They got a number of new power tools to use. And Mr. Danko started an innovation and design class where students have the opportunity to think of anything they want to create and then make it in that class, whether it is woodworking, whether it's metal, whether it's digital. It's been extremely popular with boys. While there are some girls in it, they are largely populated by boys, and it would be wonderful to increase those sections throughout the day so students have it. And I can't thank Mr. Spittle enough and the custodial team, Brian Mansfield, Jay Gibbons. They have taken that room. They have built peg boards. They have built a shop vac system that could be quite expensive. We did it with our own, can-do knowledge, and in one weekend put together cleaning systems and security systems and stopgap systems for safety that have been quite impressive. If you get a chance, I hope you go down and look at it.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Wills, this is a dreaded calendar conversation, or the much anticipated calendar?
Quite a bit to talk about.
Or you want to do the calendar first and then do your superintendent report, or are you going to kind of do it all
I'll do it all
together?
together.
All right, go
Get
crazy.
it together here.
Ooh, that's pretty.
Yeah, I'll start with it because the BOCES calendar meeting was today. It's not the final meeting, but it was a semifinal meeting. And
We're at the county center?
yeah, right.
With everybody else? How come mine's this way?
And actually, their calendar looks an awful lot like the calendar that we proposed at our last meeting here.
Okay.
So that helps us a lot. They have 2 days in February. We probably would look at 3 because they have 187 days and our calendar's 186. So we might get an extra day in February.
I thought they were looking at the week. That went away?
Excuse me?
I thought BOCES was looking at the week.
That's right. So
For February.
everything changed when people were actually going to their boards and then submitting calendars. And so the calendars do look, I mean, this is the BOCES calendar. More than that means 50% or more of the component districts have selected this type of calendar. So this looks like the calendar that you would have for next year, pretty much. Except maybe, as I said, an additional day, because we have to find an additional day in our district to go to 186. But most of the conversation, we've also talked in our district about possibly starting with a superintendent's conference day before Labor Day, but that's still in the works. We're not sure that will happen, but it wouldn't change anything for the student days. So, you know, I think.
BOCES includes the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And the Monday after Easter.
Yes. So it's very much like the calendar, as I said, that we had. Now, you know, a lot of things depend on snow days and that type of thing. This year was a year, has been a year, I shouldn't say was, has been a year with less of a challenge in terms of snow days, but you don't know what's
Fingers
happening
crossed.
next. You don't know what's happening. A
Only
lot of
the
things
first
could
week
happen.
of February.
February, March,
Only
and
the
April.
first week of February.
We have first week in April can be major too. So we'll wait on that. But anyway, we're not voting tonight, but it looks like we're in line. And you know, our main point here is we don't want our students to miss their BOCES programs, and we try to make it as close as possible. Okay? So that looks like it's not going to be too terrible. I mean, the most difficult issue for superintendents right now is trying to figure out what the state means by the 180 days and the 990 hours. That's the big dilemma. But we did the spreadsheet today. There's a spreadsheet online that the state has created, and Mike Lee inputted our numbers, and it looks like we're fine with our hours, and we'll be okay with, we use this calendar. So, but that is the biggest challenge right now. Districts who are looking at half-days in places and how to make it all add up, because you can't count lunch and recess and that type of thing. So, but we're okay. Our hours are okay.
And when do we need to have this approved by? Are we going to look at next week, or?
I don't think we'll have it next week. I
Okay.
don't think BOCES is ready yet.
Okay,
I would say it probably will be in March.
okay.
But I think we're all right, and most people are concerned about Labor Day, and nothing's gonna happen before Labor Day. That's what
So-
most parents,
So Natalie, you can start
And-
IEP meetings.
yeah. And they also want to know, yeah, the IEPs,
Yeah.
and also the February week. We might have one extra day in there. Okay? The one thing that will be an issue for us, we've been used to having half-days at the end of the year for middle school and elementary school. We're not sure that can happen. That there's a real question about whether we can really have those half-days. Because the state has been waffling. They've been going one way or another. Nobody really has a firm interpretation of whether those half-days would count as hours. And, you know, as long as you're okay with your total hours, that's one area. Then you have to have 180 days, and if those days aren't there, you know, if you have no snow days, that's one thing. Then you could have your half-day. But as long as the hours add up. But if you have snow days, those half-days in the elementary school in particular, the high school is okay. And they're saying that if a school has regents, which our middle school does, you might be able to have some of those days at the middle school. Might. But there's still a question because we have 5th and 6th grade.
And we only have one region, plus one
Yes.
section of math.
There's algebra and there's math.
Algebra
And
and
there's,
science.
But algebra is only one
Yeah,
section of
right.
students.
two, I think they should.
Two.
Two.
But, and then earth science. But
Science.
it's the whole notion of them having a regents. It's still, that is still an area of ambiguity, which we'll have to work be flexible on and work on.
And
So
I-
I'd like to,
I just want, I know parents often have given their feedback that when it's this early, if we can start after Labor Day, they prefer it, but
yeah,
Yeah.
and we will, yeah, that's
Right.
it. This calendar starts after Labor Day. Yeah, definitely does. See, it starts after Labor Day.
great.
So the first day would probably be a superintendent's conference day, that Tuesday, and then starting on that Wednesday. Probably. In other words, it's after Labor Day, which is what parents, that's why I said, that's the big.
Right, that's usually the
question.
big feedback,
It
right.
is after.
Mhm.
So I'd like to go back to my report then. Yep. Superintendent's report. And I want to, pay some tributes here and talk a little bit about this week. So we've been mourning in Putnam Valley this week. We're honoring the memory of a student, Elias Knapp, who died in a tragic accident on Saturday evening. And we've also honoring the memory of a beloved teacher who retired here, Sue Berger, who passed away this weekend. We also, in the last couple of weeks, lost another teacher, Carol Brown, a retired teacher, and one of our monitors, Joanne Domersky. So it has been very, very, it's been a very moving time, and a time that tests the spirit of an organization, of an institution. And we want to be sure to remember each of our colleagues, and we're heartbroken to be mourning the loss of a senior in high school filled with the promise of youth. And it has been quite an experience, and as I said, it tests everyone. So I have special thanks that I want to give to our crisis team, our staff, who were present on Saturday and Sunday to plan our response to the tragedy, and to ensure that our school was open and welcoming to troubled students on Sunday who sought comfort. The regional crisis team was there, and that's BOCES, providing this regional program. And Natalie is very much part of that. And the comfort dogs were also there with us on the weekend and during the beginning of this week. Janine was there on Saturday, and Ms. Rufo, and Guy was there. And you saw how our staff works together. As I said, these are the times when you can see what the real core is here of our faculty and our staff. And it's a pretty remarkable achievement to have a staff that is that collaborative and connected and working so well together on something so important. Also, I have to mention that Mr. O'Connor, our assistant principal, and the parent mentioned this to me, Elias's parent, tonight too, that Mr. O'Connor was at the hospital beginning on Friday night, and with the students there. There were many students at that hospital, and he was the adult. He was the only adult there with them. And they were, it was really an important role to play to help them to deal with this, very, very tragic situation. We have sent out information on the visitation and services for Elias, and they'll be held on Saturday from 2 to 6 at the Yorktown Funeral Home in Shrub Oak. So this is something, as I said, this is a way that we see who we really are. What was really quite amazing to me on Monday, coming in after Sunday and being here for the gathering, seeing our teachers here, Ms. Intrieri and I we knew that the authorization visit from IB, this is something so enormous, this enormous initiative. And Matt Mello had contacted IB and told them what had happened here, and said that we were restructuring our meetings to make sure that, like the tour would be the second day rather than the first day. And we wondered, you worry about how will people feel about, sitting and doing the kind of academic soul searching that we had to do for this authorization visit, because the questions are quite probing and quite rigorous about what we're doing in our schools. And it was really quite a wonderful thing to see how our whole faculty and everyone came together. And I do, for the record, just as they do in Congress, I would like to read the letter that Ms. Intrieri sent to her staff, because I think Again, it marks a certain kind of spirit that we have at our high school. So for the record, I want to read the letter. Dear faculty, this is written by Dr. Intrieri, I should say, Dr. Intrieri. Dear faculty, the IB authorization visit successfully wrapped up today. Before they left for home, the evaluators debriefed us on their findings, and they were extremely positive about Putnam Valley High School. First and foremost, the area that stood out the most to the visiting team was the strength and enthusiasm of the faculty. They were astonished at the lack of faculty turnover and the genuine love that teachers showed toward the school. Remember, we were not in those meetings, the principal, myself. These were with the teachers and the authorization team. They told us how every group came very prepared for their meeting with their outlines ready to discuss what they learned at training. Now, our teachers were trained, and they also developed syllabi, and they developed curriculum, and they had their outlines with them to discuss with the authorization team. Even though no one has taught their IB courses yet, they view the faculty as well on their way to becoming experts. They were very pleased that teachers knew how to access the IB online resources through My IB, and were impressed with everyone's overall knowledge on how to incorporate theory of knowledge and international mindedness into the curriculum. They did not mention any areas in need of improvement to us, and we see this as a good sign. While this visiting team does not make the final decision on whether we are authorized for IB this year, their findings suggest that their recommendation report will be favorable. We hope to know the decision before winter is out. I want to genuinely thank all of you for the investment that you each showed in the IB program and the change process. It lifted my spirits during a challenging week. You have my appreciation for the incredible hard work and thinking that has gotten us to this point. Your input and your collaboration on this initiative have been invaluable, and your passion for good teaching continues to inspire me. Besides the work done by each group to prepare for this visit, there were many things that made this experience a positive one. Specifically, the English department did an amazing collaborative lesson that introduced the IB learner profile to students. Throughout the past 2 years, Marie, who was in our office, our clerical assistant, our senior office assistant, has been busy making sure every detail of everyone's training is handled promptly and correctly, and this has been a big job. Gail did a wonderful job with our new course catalog that now has IB pathways and courses. I also appreciate Andrea's efforts to create a welcoming IB bulletin board that the visiting team noticed right away. It has taken an entire team effort to make this visit happen. I would be remiss if I did not thank Matt Mello for his tireless efforts to bring IB to the Valley. Matt has been the true leader in this implementation process. While I have been busy with other tasks very often, Matt has kept his eye on the ball and made sure we stayed on a timeline to success. He has scheduled and facilitated an endless amount of meetings to ensure collaboration and dialogue between all groups. He has shown great passion, patience, and commitment to this process, and I am very grateful to him for the work he has done in this initiative. I have worked in enough places to know that the dedication of this faculty is not found in most schools. You've done exceptional work, and you should be proud of yourselves and each other for a job well done. I am delighted with how well we have grown as a team to do inspiring work that improves the quality of education for Putnam Valley students. I hope you enjoyed the sunshine these past 2 days, even in the darkest days of winter and in the midst of tremendous sadness. Hope springs eternal. Sandy. Now that's greatness in leadership, and it needs to be reported. I want to, comment on the basketball team creating the special shirt, remembering Elias. And tomorrow, the students will wear blue in his honor. Putnam Valley is a unique, compassionate, and caring community. I don't know if you've seen the article in the New York Times about Putnam Valley. Did you see that, the real estate article? A lot of work went into that article. I was sent an email about our schools with some very brief questions, but what I did is I sent them a long article about our school district.
Surprised.
And they did
With a few
print some of the
details in there?
things. They did print some of the things, and they took a beautiful picture of our high school with the Aspire, because I gave them that background, and I thought it was a wonderful article that really characterized Putnam Valley very well. Its unique qualities. It's old-timey, they called it, and I like the old-timey. I don't know why.
Going to cause demand for real estate in the
So our basketball team was featured. We very rarely get to the LoHUD. We very rarely get to the Journal News. We were there, front page. And that was the game with Albertus Magnus, which took place Tuesday night. And Darlene Schillingford, who recently attained his 1,000th point, made all his foul shots. That's pretty amazing. And Ryan DeSoto made a three-pointer during the game. That all those points counted because it was a one-point game. So every point counts, every vote counts. Remember that. More to come as we hold the playoffs and the sectionals at County Center. Next week, we will be enjoying the Unforgettable Great Works concert, honoring 100 years of Leonard Bernstein. I know it will be a thrilling performance. And on Thursday night, Valentine's Day, the one-act plays written by our students, Jacqueline Pedotti, Bianca Garcia, Caitlin Carroll, will be produced here, right here in our performance space. And Kathy Schutz has been working with them on the rehearsals, which again have taken place during that community lunch. So that community lunch, a lot of exciting things are going on during that time. And many of our students have turned out to act in these plays and to participate as directors and doing the tech. And it's really, that's going to be at 5:30 on, it starts at 5:30, the one-act plays.
The students said 5.
Oh, 5, I'm sorry. I thought 5:30, but 5, if I may be wrong.
And is the public welcome at the one-act plays?
The public's
also?
not only welcome, we send something out. It's at 5, I have 5:30, but 5 o'clock is fine to get here. And yes, the public is
Well, they'd
welcome.
be a half hour late if they came at 5:30.
What?
If they came at 5:30, they'd be a
I
half
know,
hour late.
I got this from Kathy
just said
Schutz,
come at
5:30,
5.
so
Maybe it is. I'm just saying that she said 5.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know what it is, really.
So maybe arrive
But
at 5.
come at
home
5 o'clock so
Hopefully
that you
it'll
get
be
a
on
good
our
seat.
website?
That's
Yes?
Get a seat, yes.
The
it'll be on
correct
the
time will
website.
be on the website?
So the
Yes.
public is welcome and notices
will
have
be.
gone out.
Now,
It
Joe,
will be.
okay.
Yeah, we need to post it.
Is there going to be a
Dan,
problem?
can you help get that posted on our website? The one. Alex.
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 And is there going to be a problem if we have to put the Leonard Bernstein to that night also?
No, we've got it all figured out for snow days for
So
each.
5 and 7?
Yeah.
We'll be able to do both.
Yes. No, we're going to move, each one of those has another snow day. So if,
Oh, the one-act play has
yes,
another
has
snow
another
day,
snow day.
not the 14th.
No, so we'll
Well,
put
the
that.
14th too. I think the one I play has the 14th as a snow date. That's what she announced.
No,
No,
the
the
14th
14th
is
is
the
the
day
day.
for the one-act play.
Yeah,
And
but
if we
there'll
have
be
to
the,
move the Leonard Bernstein to the 14th.
there's another snow day. We'll get those all out. So in other
Okay.
words, if Leonard Bernstein moves to the 14th,
Then the one-act
the
play will
14th
move.
move to theirs, yes.
Okay, all
Got
right.
it.
Snow day.
But I just want to say, just to remind people, all the timing and the dates aside, that these are original one-act plays, student-created, and this is really a very exciting thing for me. I
Yes,
can't
it is.
wait to see them. And that creative an action by these students is just so exciting, chosen from many, many entrants as well. So I can't wait to see it.
Yes,
Looking
this is
forward
very,
to it.
and they're quite serious. They deal with serious human issues, as
Great.
plays do. They struggle, plays are about the struggles we have, problems and human questions. So I'm sure this is going to be incredible for everyone.
And I know Fran did, and I also wrote to the people who scored the plays, and said to them, I
God
would
bless
not
your
have want
soul."
that job.
But it was all done
Because,
blind.
no, it was done
Yeah.
blind, but
Yeah.
really, I mean, to
Nuances
go
of
through
talent.
16 plays, the original plays.
I
is-
think that in itself says a
That is
lot about our
probably
It
schools
is.
too.
They were,
Right.
they were, like, each one had things in them that were so well done. Like, it just, I really admire the people who took that on also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, a couple of other things. I want to congratulate Bill Scampoli and Sean Gilroy, two of our teachers who have their national board certification. They received their awards. And now for something a little more mundane, but very, very important.
You've intrigued me.
And that is water mains. I must say,
I was wondering what was coming. It
But
turns out to be a lot of water.
I have to
reading
say
about
that
the
again,
waterlands.
this is a question of staff. We have people to thank. We've noticed that we had a lot of runoff here on the campus. And we associated the runoff, which is on that back parking lot, and, you know, icing up, and we had all this problem. We associated with the very, very wet weather, and there was a lot of wet weather. We know we had tremendous amount of rain, the water was coming up. We were told that water was going across the highway and so on. We really were concerned, and how are we going to fix this problem? Well, due to the scrutiny by Brian Mansfield of water bills and water use, we figured out we think that's the real source of the problem, but we know we have a water main break somewhere in this campus. We don't know exactly where, but we have someone who is working on that now to find where it is, but we believe, in fact, they're connected. And Dave Spittle has been, you know, actively trying to figure out how we can get this fixed without closing school, because it's a major issue. That's what we're working on now. You know, some schools have had to close. BOCES had to close and so on. What we had originally planned to do was do this over the February break, but unfortunately, that's the time that our gym is most used. We have our games. We don't want to disturb this whole thing that's happening with our students. So we're now looking at March, the March Superintendent's Conference Day. We don't want to close during a school day. So we're doing everything we can. And however, I must say it's due to our staff who really care. Our staff really cares. Our custodial staff, our facilities. You know, Dave constantly found someone who's doing surveying for us, who can help us find where the water break is, because we were worried that we'd have to dig, but they have equipment that can help them find and it's not just a dowser. We talked about getting a dowser. I could bring one from Maine, one of the dowsers. But no, we have something a little more sophisticated. But this is old-timey, so a dowser would work. But we are going to have the water main located, the water main break, and fixed, but we're trying to avoid closing school.
So, Dr. Wills, are the basketball games, I'm assuming, or the gym activity, I'm assuming are already scheduled, and are they Monday through Friday
In our gym,
of that week? Because I just the thought of running the risk that March 18th, we don't know what snow is still coming.
I know, but it's the days we have school on that February. We have school. We have school. We only have one
Monday
day.
and Tuesday.
Right.
That's right.
We can't,
There's the downside.
and that's when we have those games that are played before the big games.
Right.
It's
Right.
It's
I'm
very
sorry.
complicated and difficult, and we've
We've
even been looking at whether you could bring portable units in.
Right.
If you close school, if you could bring in, like,
For the games, like,
but I don't believe the state will let you do that for the hygiene. I don't know if they'll let you. We're looking into it.
Right.
But I just wanted to fill people in. When you see, by the way, we do have surveyors here on the property because of the project that we're working on, the wellness center and so on. A lot of things are happening, and I just wanted to make sure people knew what we were doing. And tonight, by the way, Dave is over at the town office. They're talking about the Pudding Street. So this is something that's, again, going to happen at some point soon.
2020 is coming, no matter how slow we want things to happen.
Well, and I'm still
So-
excited. I believe the 7th grade students that did the first bridge project about the Pudding Street Bridge are currently 9th graders.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I am crossing my fingers that they are actually students,
They'll be the first
maybe
students.
even driving as seniors on the bridges they designed.
I noticed when driving past Pudding Street, there's been some
Clearing.
clearing
Construction
of
issues going
trees
on.
and
Yeah, a lot of
other
clearing.
things like
They
that.
had
so-
to do that because of some endangered snake or something that was over
say
there, so they
endangered
had to do
snake?
it during, really, I swear to God.
Good
Like,
to-
at
good to
some
see
point in
something's
time, or some animal, I don't remember which one it was, and there was a certain type of snake, so they had to go in and clear it during a
To
certain
save
time
the
of
So
the
they get the
year,
snakes out and move
so
them?
that they could not
Disrupt
damage
the
or
snake
disrupt them.
during the,
So that's why it was done so soon.
So now they're all
It
in
was
our
an
arboretum.
interesting fact.
We've moved into our arboretum over here.
It was an interesting little
as
fact.
long as they're not poisonous, I'm good with that. Okay. Do we have any PTA, PTSA representation? I do not think so. I'd like to open it up to public contribution on the listed agenda items. And moving along, right to new business, can I ask you to begin with number one, Mr. Ferrara?
Resolved on the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools to amend the provisional appointment of David Spittle as Director of Facilities, Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation effective July 1st, 2018, to probationary appointment as Director of Facilities, Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation effective February 8th, 2019, subject to the satisfactory completion of a probationary term of not less than a minimum 8 weeks, April 5th, 2019, and a maximum 52 weeks, February 7th, 2020, probationary period.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Mr. Spittle's not going anywhere. Number two.
Resolved on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to appoint Jessica Newth as a 6-week long-term substitute teacher at the elementary school, effective April 29th, 2019 through June 10th, 2019, or sooner at the discretion of the Board of Education at the rate of $125 per day. Ms. Newth holds childhood education 1 to 6 initial certification. Her first name is misspelled in the beginning of this. It's Jessica, not Jessica Cole. So it's Jessica Newth.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Number three.
Resolved on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to accept the bid of Europro Environmental LLC, the low bidder, for the asbestos abatement of the elementary school windows.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Number four.
Resolved on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to adopt the guidelines and procedures document from CFE Consulting Services for best management practices for MS4 compliance for stormwater discharges as per document 122/19, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
We're not going to have a presentation on the water presentation that we've had before. That was so thrilling. We're not having that presentation?
Not sure. I don't think it may not need it this year.
Okay.
If we're just using the same
I
company.
know, I like it, I haven't.
All in favor? Aye. Number five.
Resolved on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to approve a purchase agreement with Putnam County for the purchase of land, parcel number 8757.48, Peekskill Hollow Road Map 20, as part of the Peekskill Hollow Road Improvement Project, as per document number 12319, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Number six.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to execute an agreement with the Westchester County Center, that's the county center, for use of the county center for semifinal basketball games involving Putnam Valley High School teams, providing that the Putnam Valley High School basketball teams enter the semifinal tournament as the higher seeded team, and therefore would become the host school, with the costs and expenses of the use of the county center to be paid from gate receipts, except for the cost of officials, and capped at the amount of gate receipts received. A copy of such agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting as document number 123-19-A.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to the consent agenda, number 1.
Resolved to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 5, as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second,
Questions or comments?
we're accepting a generous donation, and we'd like to thank Ms. Rosenbeck for giving us some camera and lighting equipment. We're approving agreement for pupil personnel services for Maxim Healthcare, and they'll help us provide nurses and other people around for the institution. We're accepting the substitute tutor list, and we're transferring some budget monies from various different categories to others. One is to help with innovative classroom design for approximately 20 teachers, and we're transferring money for that. Is coming from the retirement system. We're approving a budget transfer due to the increased cost of tuition for our AP courses, which are taught at Dutchess Community College, and that money is coming from reserves, and we're approving a transfer fund of the amount, approving a transfer fund to cover the drainage emergency at the high school, which we just recently heard about.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to open it up to public comment on any topic or anything from the board. Okay. I would then like resolve to convene an executive session for one matter that may lead to the appointment of a particular person, 2 matters regarding pending litigation, and 1 matter made exempt under federal law, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, after which time no further business will be conducted.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, everyone.